Happy Independence Day everyone, welcome to the next episode of SpongeBob Now. Today, I will be talking about Greasy Buffoons and Model Sponge. First, I'm going to talk about Greasy Buffoons. Enjoy. While delivering an order to a customer, SpongeBob slips in a puddle of grease on the floor. Upon further inspection, he, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward see that the restaurant's grease trap is full and deduce that it probably has not been cleaned in quite some time. Mr. Krabs notes that he needs 2 employees to clean it for no extra pay, and Squidward camouflages himself into thin air, leaving SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs to do the job. That night, SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs siphon the grease from the trap into a tanker truck and take it to be disposed of by illegally dumping it behind the chum bucket. SpongeBob questions whether it is legal to dump all the grease behind the chum bucket, but as Mr. Krabs has no qualms about performing an illegal activity on his worst enemy Plankton, he tells SpongeBob not to worry. The next morning, Plankton slips on the grease while taking out the trash, confused as to how it got there. It smells horrible, but upon tasting it, he finds it delicious. Plankton takes advantage of the situation by putting it into his chummy patties. Later that day, Mr. Krabs sees that Plankton has a whole line of customers outside his restaurant, which is very unusual, but then he spots a sign that reads the chum bucket is now serving chummy patties with edible flavor, which is chummy patties soaked in crusty crab grease. As Plankton happily enjoys receiving money from the customers, Krabs confronts him, believing that he stole the Krabby Patty formula. However, Plankton mocks Krabs by saying that he didn't steal the formula, this time at least, as he had a visit from the Flavor Fairy. Realizing that it was the grease that he dumped that gave Plankton's chum its flavor, Mr. Krabs instructs SpongeBob to cook 2 patties for everyone who ordered, using the grease from the second to fry the first. SpongeBob thinks that it is unhealthy, but does as he is told. Mr. Krabs promotes this as a deluxe Krabby Patty, which attracts Plankton's customers towards the Krusty Krab. Realizing that it was Mr. Krabs that dumped the grease, Plankton creates new chummy patties packed with quadruple grilled goodness, which steals Mr. Krabs' customers again. Everyone is becoming very unhealthy from eating greasy patties, but they cannot stop eating them. Mr. Krabs makes SpongeBob put even more grease in the patties, and after slipping in some grease in which SpongeBob dropped some buns on an hour ago, Mr. Krabs decides to create Krabby Patties with yummy buns, which are only just patties with their buns soaked in grease. In response, Plankton creates Crispity Crunchities, which are just burnt grease crumbs. Mr. Krabs then creates Wow Soup, which, as he explains to Squidward, is just pure grease on a paper plate. When SpongeBob walks out of the kitchen, he realizes that the Krusty Krab, the chum bucket, the customers, and the ground outside are covered in grease and the customers are extremely sick. SpongeBob starts to have second thoughts about the greasy foods that Mr. Krabs and Plankton are serving. He ultimately decides that enough is enough when he sees his best friend Patrick, now obese from all the greasy foods and walking into the restaurant to get some crunchity munchities. SpongeBob calls the health inspector, which Mr. Krabs and Plankton fear. When the health inspector arrives and questions what had happened, SpongeBob tries to tell him that Mr. Krabs and Plankton are feeding people grease, but he is cut off by Mr. Krabs and Plankton, who stuff him in a bin. He then repeatedly says, "They've been feeding people," only to be cut off every time by being knocked on the head with the bin lid by Mr. Krabs and Plankton, getting trapped in the bin after Mr. Krabs and Plankton put the lid on and falling off a cliff after Mr. Krabs and Plankton roll the bin off the cliff, leaving him seriously injured at the bottom of said cliff before weakly telling the health inspector that they have been feeding people grease. The health inspector hears this and admits that he thought the grease's stench was familiar, but he also thought that Plankton and or Mr. Krabs had not showered in a while. Plankton initially tries blaming the whole thing on Mr. Krabs, but the health inspector puts his foot down by threatening to have both Krabs and Plankton's restaurants shut down unless the grease is cleaned up and properly disposed of by the end of the day. The health inspector then leaves, covering both Krabs and Plankton in grease as he drives away. After Plankton leaves to go clean himself up, Mr. Krabs appears defeated since he has no way to soak up the grease, but this gives SpongeBob an idea. When Mr. Krabs wakes up at his restaurant the next day and sees that all the grease is gone from the entire area, he initially thinks that the whole thing was just a dream, but then SpongeBob appears and assures his boss that it was not a dream. It turns out that SpongeBob soaked up all the grease and is now much larger in size because of it and plans on properly disposing of it. After SpongeBob happily announces the Krusty Krab is grease-free, Patrick, having recovered from his grease intoxication, comes up to him and starts licking him, thinking he is a crunchety-munchety. SpongeBob runs away with Patrick behind as the episode comes to an end when Mr. Krabs is getting ideas as the episode ends. Next, I'm going to talk about Model Sponge. Enjoy. Listening in on a conversation Mr. Krabs is having on the phone, SpongeBob thinks he is going to get fired because he heard the former was going to let the little guy go that day. He tries to be taller than Squidward using his abilities, seeing who was the little guy, eventually realizing that he is indeed smaller. Distraught, he leaves and heads home. Back in Mr. Krabs' office, he is seen letting the little guy, who is his pet scallop that got too big for the cage, go, and it flies out the window. Later, SpongeBob sits at home, depressed when Patrick arrives to borrow his refrigerator because his refrigerator was empty. When he learns of SpongeBob's predicament, Patrick suggests that he do what he does when looking for a job: sit back, watch TV, and chug down a carton of drinkable sausage. Gary gives SpongeBob smarter advice by giving attention to a newspaper, Fresh Ones, with job suggestions. SpongeBob tries out banking and architecture but realizes that fry cooking is the only thing he knows how to do. With some encouragement from Patrick and with the help of a billboard saying a job for a sponge, he tries out for a sponge role at a TV station and, despite a complete lack of talent, gets it. When SpongeBob arrives at work the next day, he thinks he is going to be a big actor, but it turns out the acting he will be doing is the role of a sponge in a bathroom cleaning commercial, so he appears as his natural self in order to be the appearance of the new sponge. Before they get to cleaning the toilet, he quits and returns to the Krusty Krab, telling Mr. Krabs he heard what he said and begs for him to give his old job back. Mr. Krabs does not understand what he's talking about, but agrees he is lucky enough to get it and lets him keep his job, under the condition that he also cleans the restaurant's toilets, which he does happily, while Hans is reading a newspaper, sitting on one of the toilets, as the episode ends. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos. Goodbye everyone.